230 cases of the illness have been reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Cases have been reported across the country, and a recall has been put in place for several brands and retailers. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
The free admission Jim Irsay Collection and Concert will be at LA Shrine Auditorium Thursday, January 11th, featuring REO Speedwagon's Kevin Cronin, ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, Buddy Guy, Hart and Wilson, and Jay Giles Band Peter Wolf. Free registration open now at JimIrsayCollection.com.
Is this the time?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Lakers lose by 2 at Dallas last night. The loss spoiled a big night for LeBron and Anthony Davis. 37 points and 11 rebounds for AD. LeBron had 33 and 9 assists. Luka Doncic broke down the Lakers defense all night with 33 points and 17 assists. The Lakers are at San Antonio tonight. The Clippers beat Sacramento by 20. First 5-game winning streak for the Clippers since January 28, 2022. Another brilliant game for Kawhi Leonard, 31 points on 11 of 14 shooting. Leonard is averaging 35.3 points and shooting 64% in the last 3 games. Golden State is in town Thursday night to play the Clippers. There's a good chance Golden State will not have Draymond Green on Thursday. The NBA is considering another suspension for Green. Last night in Phoenix, Green was ejected for punching Phoenix center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the gift-giving season, and we have a gift for you. Visit us online at KBLA.store for holiday savings of 20% off all of our KBLA swag. For the best in merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store right now. And be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all our official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580, at 20% off, but only during the holiday season. Happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm delighted to have you tuned into our program today, and particularly in this hour. And in this hour, 2 conversations. On the B side, our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, joins us to dissect the latest news. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but there's some new news, some good news, in fact, about a groundbreaking treatment for sickle cell disease, which obviously impacts African Americans disproportionately. We'll talk about that. Some news on COVID and some news on the controversial weight loss drug Ozempic. That's on the backside of this hour with our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond. We commence this hour with our friend and brother, Peter Greenberg, who is the travel editor for CBS News. I hope Peter has some secrets to share with us about how to best navigate the busiest travel season of the year. Peter Greenberg, to travel or not to travel this holiday season, that, sir, is the question.
Hey, Tavis, well, listen. Of course the answer is to travel, but you got to do it smart, and you have to be strategic because, remember, it all gets down to 3 things. The airline schedule itself, what they're charging for fares, and last but not least, the great intangible, weather.
Yeah.
And so you have to plan appropriately. And we can start with schedule if you want. Because
let's go.
Okay, here it comes. Most of your listeners are probably making their reservations online. I think it's a huge mistake, because the internet is not your friend. It doesn't tell you the answers to the questions you have. Plus, it doesn't give you the full inventory. But if you're going to at least research online, don't just be motivated by the fare. Most of us are flying on connecting flights. And I see connecting flights listed there with 33-minute connect times. That's suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. I mean, it takes you 33 minutes to get off the plane. So what you need to do, I'm right.
Yeah, you are. You are.
So what you need to do, and that's if it's good weather.
Mm-hmm.
So what you need to do is book a connecting flight with at least 2.5 hours between flights. You will thank me because every plane is full. And so if your first flight is late and you miss that second flight, even if the airline wants to put you on their next flight's full, and you'll be spending the night in a rocking chair at an airport you didn't want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing about schedule.
But before you move from schedule, since you went there, I've been curious about this. Even more curious now, Peter, that you said what you just said. So if we are online and we're not seeing the full inventory, why is every airline everywhere when you're on hold, every audio message they send you? If we're not getting the full service online, why are all the airlines pushing us to book flights online?
Well, because it's less labor costs for them.
Ah.
But let me tell you the other answer, though.
Okay.
How many of your listeners try to call the airline and they're put on hold for 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
So I have an answer for that, too. You do not call the 800 number for the airline in the U.S. You call the 800 number that airline has for their customers in India, in Japan, in Rome, in London. They are looking at the same screens as their guys are in Atlanta and Dallas and Chicago, but they'll at least answer the phone. You won't be put on hold.
And how do you find those 800 numbers in India, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, believe it or not, you go online and you find out the toll-free numbers for airlines in those host countries, and off you go.
That easy.
It is. And listen, you call up and they go, well, if you just leave your number, we'll call you back anytime within the next 17 days. You go, I'll be dead by then, thank you. And then you just call the 800 number overseas.
Yeah. This is going to be. I want to be sensitive when I say this, but I know that you mentioned a moment ago, Tavis. You said I'm telling the truth. You know I'm right, and so I'm about to say something as well, Peter, and you know I'm right about it. More importantly, if you don't, the audience knows I'm right about it. So I love that. That's why I say Peter has secrets. I love the secret you just shared with us about how to dial the 800 number in India or elsewhere rather than the domestic 800 number, because at least they will answer. You won't be on hold for 7 days. To your brilliant point. And yet, I say this lovingly, is it just me or other people as annoyed as I am when you call not just airlines, since we're talking travel, but anything, and you're talking to somebody in India and you can't understand them or they can't understand you? There's a cultural disconnect sometimes, Peter.
Oh, there's not sometimes. It's about bad training and different language skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you get a call center, let's just say in India, they don't know the difference between Dallas and Dulles. They also think New Mexico is a country that requires a passport. But they do. So here's the good news. There is good news here.
Okay.
If you call an 800 number and you get somebody who's just having problems with the English language, you have the ability to hang up and call right back and get somebody who doesn't.
I hear you. All right, I jumped in, interrupt because I wanted to ask that question. That was
that's okay.
that was the first of your 3 points. That was schedule. Your second frame is?
Well, the second one is we need to lobby our elected representatives in the area of common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this. There's not a runway in the world, at any airport in the world, whether it's Los Angeles or Lagos, Nigeria, that can handle more than 23 takeoffs in a given hour, because there's about a 2.5 minute separation between flights. Multiply that by 23, and that's why you get to 60. Now, here's the interesting thing. Why is it that airlines are allowed to schedule 41 flights that take off at 8 o'clock in the morning? Somebody answer that question? Look, I failed math in school. I did. But I can do basic arithmetic here.
Yeah.
So the airports need to step up here, because the airlines won't, because they want to be officially competitive. The airports need to step up and say, look, United Airlines, American, Delta, you can take off at 11:07. American, you can take off at 11:11. Delta, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And we'll switch it around. We'll make it like a lottery. We're not going to tell you what plane you have to fly or where you want to fly or how many times a day you want to go somewhere, but these are your slots. Now, if you miss the slot, you go to the back of the line. And all of a sudden, you're going to see some very strong strategic scheduling by the airlines, because it's now there'll be financial consequences if they miss those marks.
All right, I get that. When we come forward, I want to move to charging. You mentioned that as an issue, and everybody wants to hear about that, of course. Airlines obviously are more competitive than ever, and I am curious, as are you, because I've not made my holiday travel plans as yet, to hear what they're charging right about now. And to Peter's point of a moment ago, I'm curious to how much power airlines have as a lobby in Washington these days. Has that power waned or grown on this side of the pandemic? We'll talk about that and a great deal more. It's the holiday travel season, and the question again, to travel or not to travel. Peter says to travel, of course, but you got to be smart about it. More secrets, more smarts from Peter Greenberg, the CBS News travel editor, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. IQ. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly, we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with the CHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Hey, everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Honey. Hey, I'm here for you. Tell me about school today.
When kids can't find the right words, music can help them sound it out. Talk to the kids in your life about their emotional well-being. Find tools and resources at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or whether anyone cares about them.
But the reality is, 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life. To learn more, go to covenanthouse.org today. Thank you for caring.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Tavis Smiley and Peter Greenberg, CBS News travel editor, coming your way right about now. All right, we talked about this scheduling, Peter, how to be smart about that, how to get around being on hold for 7 days, as you put it. Talk to me now about the charges. These airlines are more competitive than ever. What are they charging to travel this holiday season?
Well, Tavis, you know what? Please forgive me, but I'm going to disagree with you on one thing.
Okay.
They're not being more competitive than ever.
Okay.
Because there are fewer of them.
Okay.
We're dealing almost with an oligopoly here. Because you're dealing with fortress airlines, right? United is out of Chicago, Delta is out of Atlanta, American's out of Dallas, and they basically figure, well, you're going to fly us anyway. So that's why fares have been unseasonably high for most of the last 2 years. Now, the good news is, speaking of charging, is that they fell off a cliff about 2 weeks ago, right after Thanksgiving, and they're going to stay down, with the exception of a couple of days around Christmas, through the end of May. So it's a buyer's market right now, as everybody's saying, you know what, I think I spent too much money on travel this year. I think I'm going to hold back until 2024. Or they're saying, you know what, I got presents to buy. I'll stay home for the next 3 months, but I still want to travel. But the point is, right now you're seeing projections that airfares over the next 2 months will drop anywhere from 26 to 32% over where they were last year. So if you're listening to me now, there's a good chance you'll see some pop-up sales on the internet They may not be around for long, maybe a day or two, but those fares that they're offering are going to be good through the end of May of 2024.
Well, the flip side, and you're the expert, you know better than I, the flip side of them being less competitive and not more competitive is that they're working together to play all of us. So is that what they're doing?
Did you just say that?
Yeah, I did. You didn't. I did. I mean, you ain't got. Hey, Peter, you ain't got but two options. Either they're competitive or they're all in alignment and they're working against us. You ain't got but two options, brother.
Well, you know which one. Then you know the option. Listen, it's a matter of supply and demand.
Yeah.
And the airlines have made more money in the last 24 months than they made in the last 8 years, because every plane has been full. We all wanted to get back out and travel, and unfortunately, we weren't very price sensitive. We said, you know what, I'm going to get back out and travel after the pandemic. I don't care what it costs. Give me that room. I don't care how much I pay for it. Give me that seat. Well, now the bills are coming in, so get ready.
You may have just answered this question, but every single person listening to you and me right now who's traveled knows exactly what you've just said is true. After the pandemic, hotels, airlines, rental car agencies, these fools lost their minds, plural, with this increase in prices. I think, are you suggesting to me they got away with it because we paid it?
Yeah, I'll give you one example close to home. We found a Motel 6. We all know that is, right?
Yeah.
Well, keep the light on for you. We found a Motel 6 in Santa Barbara that was charging, fasten your seatbelt, $436 a night.
Man.
And they were full. And they were full.
And your view is that we agreed to pay these outrageous prices, this highway robbery, or skyway robbery. We agreed to pay this because why? We were so desperate to get out after the pandemic?
Yeah, we just wanted to get back out. Because something else happened, by the way. And I'll be serious for a second here. For so many of us, the pandemic forced us to come up close and personal with our own mortality. And, you know, either we got COVID and luckily we survived, or somebody we know or love, a family member or a close friend got it and didn't. And it changed our purchasing patterns. We then got out of there and said, you know what? I don't want to buy a new car. I don't care about clothing or jewelry or expensive electronic items. I have no idea how long I'm going to be on the planet. So you know what? I better get out and see the world. I want to buy experiences. And we all came rushing out.
Yeah.
That really explains a lot of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned the power of these airlines earlier, and I want to ask Peter how complicit Congress has been with the airlines being able to flex in the way they have since the pandemic, or even for that matter prior to. But how complicit has Congress been in giving the airlines pretty much everything they want?
Well, it's not just Congress, Tavis. It's also the regulatory agencies like the U.S. Department of Transportation and the FAA. The problem right now is we still do not have a passenger bill of rights in this country. In Europe, there's something called EC Rule 261. It's been on the books for years. They do have a passenger bill of rights. If you're on an airline in Europe and they delay your flight by more than 3 hours, they write you a check on the spot. They're required to do it. In the United States, they might give you 5,000 bonus miles that you can't redeem. So we need to – look, if you want to get everybody's attention, cancel Congress's flights. That'll get their attention.
I like it.
And you know what? Short of legislation, because legislation never seems to do what it's supposed to do, we need effective rulemaking from the U.S. Department of Transportation. That's what the hope is for 2024.
So let me just ask you point blank. I'm not naive in asking, but since you went there, Peter, I'll follow you. Why in this country do we not have a passenger bill of rights?
Because the Congress has been lobbied. You brought it up. Congress has been lobbied very effectively by the airlines, who claimed, by the way, for many years that if you do this to us, we'll go out of business. If you do this to us, we'll have a complete financial meltdown. And of course, that never happened. What we did see, and we're seeing it all over again right now, is consolidation. We're seeing airlines buying other airlines and fewer airlines out there. We're on the verge of an oligopoly. So, for example, JetBlue wants to take over Spirit. That case is now being litigated in court in Boston because the U.S. Justice Department is claiming it might be anti-competitive. And on the West Coast, we just saw Alaska Airlines announce it wants to buy Hawaiian for nearly $2 billion, and now the Justice Department has to look at that. But if either of those two mergers go through, here's the question. I know you don't need to answer because you know the answer. Are airfares going down or up?
I get it. What's driving all these mergers, these corporate takeovers, as it were?
Well, they want to consolidate because they want to control markets. And once they control markets, they can set prices anywhere they want. And let me give you one more step. If the Spirit deal goes through with JetBlue, that would leave only one ultra-low fare airline or ultra-low-cost airline left in America as Frontier Airlines. So let's look at the numbers. Let's say they're charging $80 for a ticket right now, and now they're the last ultra-low-cost carrier left. What's to stop them from charging $150 a ticket? They'll still be cheaper than everybody else, but how much more money they're going to make, and who's going to have to pay that?
When you said ultra low cost carrier, for some reason, just because I'm probably conditioned this way, my mind went to Southwest. But you obviously don't put Southwest in that category anymore.
Oh no, Southwest is now one of the majors. They do a very, very good job. They've branded their whole company around not nickel and diming you. Way before the pandemic, they weren't charging you to check bags. If you had to cancel a flight, you didn't lose your money. They just gave you credits. They've done a very responsible job. Even though they had a meltdown about a year ago that we all remember, they still have a huge reservoir of passenger goodwill because, no, they're not the cheapest airline on the block, but they have great passenger goodwill because they're not nickel and diming people.
Yep. Back to this notion of a passenger's bill of rights, or the fact that we don't have one, I should say, in this country. Have they changed the rules, or are there rules, you tell me, Peter Greenberg, about what happens when there's some sort of delay and they won't let you off the plane and you're on the runway for hours? We've all seen those horror stories. Nobody wants that during the holiday season. What's the rule, if there is one, about that this holiday season?
Well, believe it or not, there is a rule. It's been around for about 12 years. It was an example of great rulemaking by the Department of Transportation. It's called the tarmac delay rule, and here's how it works. It has severe financial consequences for the airlines. If they push back from the gate with you on the plane and they make you sit out there on the tarmac for more than 3 hours without going back to the gate and getting you off the plane, they are liable to a fine of up to $27,500 per passenger. Guess what? A fully loaded 737, you're already in seven figures. So here's the question. How many tarmac delay violations have there been in the last 12 years? You ready?
Yeah.
About 8.
It went down.
It almost disappeared.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
the airlines, they fought it and said this is unfair, we can't do it. Of course they could do it because there were severe financial consequences.
Yeah. So clearly the question I'm about to ask now is a case-by-case basis, but we've all been in a situation where the flight is oversold, and you're going to hear a lot of this as you travel during the holiday season. The flight's oversold, and they start offering money to get off the plane. Now, I always get mad at the idiots who take the first offer because I'm like, sit down and shut up. If you shut up, they're going to keep raising this dollar figure because they can't take this plane off until somebody accepts the deal. And I hate these fools that take the first offer that they make. But what's your rule? Obviously, you're Peter Greenberg, so I know you never take the cash. You never take it. But what are your thoughts about whether or not, when, where, how we ought to consider taking the money and getting off the plane?
Not so fast, Mr. Smiley.
There
Let
you
me
go.
tell you my story.
Okay.
I'm on a flight, and it was overbooked. They said, who wants to volunteer to give up their seat? We'll give you a voucher for $500. And everybody got smart, and nobody stood up. Then I went up to 1,000. Then I went to 1,500. We're still sitting at the gate. Now it's at 2,000. It goes to 2,500. And I'm saying, do I need to get to Chicago right away? Do I really need? And it got to $4,500. I figured, okay, I'm taking the money. I stood up. I got trampled. Everybody else got it. But your point is well taken.
Yeah.
Don't be the first to volunteer. It's an auction.
Yeah.
The money's going to go up.
Yeah. I have never, I'm laughing for a couple of reasons. One, you got trampled. I'm glad you're okay. But I have never been on a plane where it went up to $4,500, number one. And number two, I've never been on, and I guess I could have reversed these. I've never been on a plane where the passengers were smart enough to wait till it got that high, Peter.
Well, you know what? There are 2 recent flights on Delta Airlines where they wrote checks for $10,000.
Man. Wow.
Yeah.
And so obviously the airlines, they have obviously agency in how high they're going to go. I'm just curious if you know the backstory for how they make that decision. Like who's calling balls and strikes when airlines? Because I mean, when we hear it, we're hearing the announcement from the flight attendant, or actually the gate agent. The gate agent is making the announcement. Who's calling the shots on how high that bidding can go, that auction can go?
Well, they're actually given authorization to go up as high as $10,000, but the criteria here is this: you're sitting at the gate. The plane is now not going to leave on time,
right?
And for every 5 minutes you're late, the cost of that airline goes up exponentially. So they got a choice to make: are they going to keep that plane at the gate longer, or write the check now? Because sooner or later you're going to have misconnected passengers, misconnected bags, crews that time out on their time, and planes that get nowhere. So they have to make a call. And it's really an interesting thing to watch it happen, because once you get beyond 8 minutes on the departure time, that money starts flowing, at least in terms of the offer.
All of this could have begun with this simple question, which is why airlines are allowed to overbook a flight in the first place.
Well, in the old days, it was easy because they were overbooking business class flights for business travelers because they had a very high no-show rate on business passengers who canceled flights and showed up later and took other flights. And they were paying a higher fare to do so. They could actually do that without getting a penalty. Those days are over. Now the planes are just full anyway because all of us are flying. There are very few no-shows.
Yeah. What's your read? Excuse me. What's your read, Peter, on all of these tricks that they use? And maybe I shouldn't call them tricks, but all of these promotions. There's a more a kinder word. What's your view of all these promotions that these airlines advance about seats with extra leg room? Is it worth it?
Well, let me put it this way. We call it the misery index. They show you a seating chart where if you take the seat you wanted, not the seat you wanted, you take the seat they give you, you will require orthopedic surgery. So it's all about the upsell. They give you the most miserable seat, and they go, oh, by the way, for $35 more, you'll have a less miserable seat. It's not about you're going to be lounging in the Barca Lounger. No. You're going to get a little more interim, and very little more width, and sometimes what they consider a better seat, and one that they'll sell for more money, is the middle seat. What's that all about?
Yeah.
So if you give me a coach seat, a window seat in the back, you know what? I will grin and bear it. On principle, I'm not going to upsell myself to a seat that I think is better when it really isn't.
Yep. I mean, you are the Peter Greenberg, but does the Peter Greenberg ever just decide, as many Americans have to decide in the next few days, whether or not they're just going to drive?
Oh, sure. You have that cost comparison where, gas prices have gone up, but they haven't gotten totally outrageous. And if you amortize the price of gas about how many people you got in the car, short of doing the Beverly Hillbillies with Granny strapped on the roof, it becomes economically viable to drive, especially if it's under 600 miles.
Yeah. And what's your read? You do this for a living, and thankfully you can report back to all the rest of us what you saw and what you learned, and offer us some advice and share some secrets. But what's your view? I've got mine. But what's your view of the service these days across the board? The service that airlines used to offer as compared to what we're getting or not getting these days?
Well, look, I'm not on the plane for the food. Airline food is an oxymoron to begin with. I'm not on the plane for the rich Corinthian leather.
Yeah.
And I'm not on the plane for the Broadway show tunes the flight attendants will not be performing. I'm on the plane. Let's face it. I'm on the plane to go from point A to point B and not die.
Right.
And every time I land, somebody says, "Hey, did you have a nice flight?" I give them a 2-word answer, and I'm being honest. We landed.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're okay.
Yeah. This is why I love Peter Greenberg. He doesn't, and it's why CBS loves him. He doesn't just give you great advice and share some secrets. He's funny, and he makes it relatable. Peter Greenberg, I appreciate you. Happy holidays to you. Thanks for the secrets, and we'll take advantage of them in the holiday season, my friend. All the best to you.
Right back at you, man.
Thanks, Peter. When we come forward from our resident travel expert to our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, you may have heard this. There is some news, some groundbreaking news about a potential cure, certainly a groundbreaking treatment for sickle cell disease. We'll talk about that and about some new news on COVID, the controversial weight loss drug, Ozempic. There's some news about that. Our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, joins us when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A new survey finds 1 in 5 black voters would rather cast their ballots for someone else other than President Biden or former President Trump next year. According to Pew, 92% of black voters cast their ballots for Biden. Attorneys representing the family of a black man killed in an officer-involved shooting in Decatur, Alabama, are filing a federal lawsuit. This comes after 3 officers who were involved in the death of Stephen Perkins were fired by the city. Another was suspended. Guess who's celebrating a birthday today? Nene Leakes and Jamie Foxx. And happy birthday to you if you're celebrating your birthday today. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
The free admission Jim Irsay Collection and Concert will be at LA Shrine Auditorium Thursday, January 11th, featuring REO Speedwagon's Kevin Cronin, ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, Buddy Guy, Hart and Wilson, and Jay Giles Band Peter Wolf. Free registration open now at JimIrsayCollection.com.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers lose by 2 at Dallas last night. The loss spoiled a big night for LeBron and Anthony Davis. 37 points and 11 rebounds for AD. LeBron had 33 and 9 assists. Luka Doncic broke down the Lakers defense all night with 33 points and 17 assists. The Lakers are at San Antonio tonight. The Clippers beat Sacramento by 20. First 5-game winning streak for the Clippers since January 28, 2022. Another brilliant game for Kawhi Leonard, 31 points on 11 of 14 shooting. Leonard is averaging 35.3 points and shooting 64% in the last 3 games. Golden State is in town Thursday night to play the Clippers. There's a good chance Golden State will not have Draymond Green on Thursday. The NBA is considering another suspension for Green. Last night in Phoenix, Green was ejected for punching Phoenix center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Is your eyesight changing?
I can't read this anymore.
Don't lose hope. People just like you are working every day using Braille, screen magnification, speech technology, and other tools and blindness skills. Your eyesight may have changed, but your goals, they don't have to. We can help. Visit us on the web at blind.org. The National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father.
And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
If you're a veteran with a service-connected disability that is directly impacting your ability to work, resources are available to help you find employment. VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment, or VR&E, can assist you with finding a job that uses your existing skills. Or, if you're interested in exploring a new field, a VR&E counselor can help you determine the right education or training options for a new career. Find out if VR&E is right for you by visiting va.gov/VRE today.
Who do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
In our third hour today, a conversation with Isaac Hayes III. Isaac Hayes III and Faison Love. It's the 20th anniversary, believe it or not, of the classic holiday film Elf. Comedian Faison Love joins us in the next hour along with Isaac Hayes III. Isaac Hayes III at the top, Faison at the bottom. And speaking of the bottom, at the bottom of this hour, I'm pleased to be joined now by our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, for a conversation about this groundbreaking treatment, this new news on sickle cell. We'll talk about COVID. We'll talk about the controversial weight loss drug Ozempic as well. But first, Dr. Drummond, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Good to hear your voice. Good to have you back. I want to make the most of the time we have covering all three of those and perhaps a bit more. But let me start with this groundbreaking treatment for sickle cell disease. I know you were involved in this. So tell me all about it.
Well, first, let me just make sure I do a very brief education for the audience.
Sure.
So sickle cell disease is a disease that in America affects about 100,000 Americans. The vast majority of them, over 90%, are Black Americans. And those individuals have 2 mutated copies of a normal gene that lead to the blood cells not being able to travel through blood vessels normally. They, under situations of like dehydration, low oxygen, they tend to kind of create these crescent cells or sickles. They get stuck into blood vessels, which can lead to these very painful vaso-occlusive crises, strokes, etc. About 1 in 13 Black Americans have 1 copy of the bad gene, meaning each time they give birth, they can pass on the bad gene to one of their children. And it's a 50% chance of passing on that bad gene. So very, very, very persistent disease that affects a lot of Americans. Now, that the treatment for this has actually not been very good. It was the first disease discovered at the molecular level. We actually call this the first molecular disease. But the treatments have really stalled over the years. Typically, the treatments are, pain medications like narcotics, IV fluids. There's some other medications that have been given, but like very strong medicines like hydroxyurea, which is a chemotherapy medicine, and they all have their own side effects. Traditionally, there was a type of cure, which was a bone marrow transplant, but you needed to have a well-matched sibling. And then you had to go on, immunosuppressive medicines for the rest of your life. And even that didn't have great results. And so that's the history behind this very debilitating disease and kind of where we've gotten to right now. And so now what's recently happened is we've had a form of gene therapy that scientists have been, I tell you all the time, scientists work in the background when no one's paying attention on these medication, on these treatments. And we've been working on this form of gene therapy for a very long time, going all the way back to 1990. And it's a technology that we derived from bacteria, believe it or not. They have a form of protection against viruses. It's called the CRISPR-Cas9 system. And it's basically a way for them to detect double strands of DNA, which they aren't supposed to see, and they chop it up and get rid of it. And so we were able to take that and use that in molecular biology and do a form of what we call gene targeting and gene editing, where we can take a bad gene and we can disrupt that bad gene, or we can edit it and get the cell to kind of do what we want it to do. And that is the kind of the background of the basis of these new medications.
So you do that when? Like when does that gene editing, as you put it, when does that actually happen?
So great question. So for this particular technology, it's for individuals that are 12 years and over, who have had at least 2 of these vaso-occlusive crises that I mentioned earlier, 2 of these painful vaso-occlusive crises over the last 2 years. So basically 4 crises over the last 2 years. Those are the individuals that are eligible for this. And you would essentially, this is a long process. That's one thing I do want the audience to understand. It's a long process, and it's not an overnight treatment. Essentially, we have to take the patient and you basically pull their what we call the stem cells out of their body, right? So you do a bone marrow retrieval, you pull the stem cells out, and then we basically deprive them of all of their stem cells, right? This is what happens in normal forms of stem cells or of gene therapy. You basically get rid of their immune system. We're wiping it out. So they're very vulnerable during this time. And this is, this occurs over weeks to months. They're very vulnerable. During that time, we're taking their cells and then we're applying this medication outside of the body to the cells. So you pull their stem cells out, you go into a lab, and then you edit those stem cells. Meanwhile, their body has no stem cells because we're giving them radiation or chemotherapy. We're dropping them down so that they have no existing immunity for a little while, and we keep them in the hospital and monitor them. And then outside of the body, we edit those cells, and then we give those cells, after they've been edited, back to the patient via an infusion. And then those new cells have to go into the patient's bone marrow and start to make new red blood cells and white blood cells, et cetera.
Right.
And so that's why you can understand this takes weeks to months to do.
What 2 questions come to mind immediately. One, would you call this then, because I want to be accurate in my description of it, would you call this then a sickle cell treatment or a sickle cell cure?
Very, very good question. From the perspective of what are we looking at trying to cure? We are trying to stop the physical manifestation of the disease, okay? By doing that, we're talking about the mutation that's happening, and are we trying to correct that mutation, or are we trying to do something else? So that's a very, very good question, because the 2 medications, or the 2, I guess you would say, therapies, are different in that regard. One of them is called Casgevy, okay? That one is not designed to necessarily correct the mutation. What that one does is it actually interferes with a completely different gene. It's still a gene that's involved in the blood cells and involved in the production of hemoglobin. But there's a type of hemoglobin that we have as babies. That hemoglobin that we have as babies doesn't have this mutation. So those patients with sickle cell, they live normally for the first few months of their life. And then at some point, the adult hemoglobin starts to be produced. And we call it the fetal hemoglobin stops being produced. So what this one form of treatment does is it actually leads to the increased production of that fetal hemoglobin, the baby hemoglobin. Now you say, well, how is that going to treat things? Like, how is that different? How is that a cure? Well, the fetal hemoglobin has the ability to prevent the cells, or should I say, to prevent the hemoglobin molecules from stacking up and prevent those sickling crises.
Oh, okay.
So if we can increase the amount of the baby hemoglobin, and it functions normally, it can still deliver oxygen normally. If we can increase that amount, then we essentially will stop the process of those cells sickling, and we stop them from having these vaso-occlusive crises. That's what one form of therapy does. The other form of therapy, Lyfgenia, that one is actually a lentiviral therapy, which is basically a harmless virus that we use to deliver an entirely new type of hemoglobin, and that is a modified hemoglobin. So that's delivering a hemoglobin gene that's going to now create new normal forms of the mutated hemoglobin. So two different ways of trying to attack the same thing. So in essence, if we stop the vaso-occlusive crisis, which is the physical manifestation of the disease, then you're actually curing the disease. You're not treating it.
So that's good news for those who suffer with sickle cell disease. When we come forward, my question is simply this. It's a beautiful thing if you survive all this and get to the treatment and then get to a cure. That's a beautiful thing. We've been, as you said, working on. You guys have been working on this for decades now. So this is nothing but good news, except that, as you mentioned earlier, you're vulnerable for a while. When you completely deconstruct and then reconstruct, my words, not yours, but deconstruct and reconstruct their immunity system for that period when they have no cells to fight off whatever may come into their body, you're pretty vulnerable. And so I want to ask about that vulnerability and whether or not the risk is worth the reward. We'll talk about that. We haven't gotten to COVID yet. We've not gotten to the controversy around this weight loss drug, Ozempic. More to talk about with our current and resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, who you're listening to right now on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, Black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any Black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up. Level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
It's a beautiful thing, Dr. Robert Drummond, to live in a moment, in a time where there in fact is a treatment and potentially a cure for sickle cell. But as you laid out earnestly and transparently, there is a vulnerability that one has to navigate with regard to their immunity system to get to the mountaintop, as it were, to get to the promised land, as it were. So is the risk worth the reward?
Well, great question. What I would say is you have to ask the patients. And what I mean by that is these pain crises are incredibly painful. And the way I would describe it, it's a lightning storm of thunder and lightning of pain. And they don't last for minutes. They don't last for hours. They can last for days and weeks at a time. So imagine the worst pain that you've ever been in your life. One of my sickle cell patients, when I was in residency, said they came in with a compound fracture with their leg sticking out of their leg broken, sticking out of their body. And we said, what is that pain like compared to your sickle pain? They said, this is about a 2 compared to my pain for my crisis.
Wow.
So you have to put that into perspective to ask the question, is it worth it?
Right.
So what I would say is that, yes, for a lot of the patients, absolutely. Patients are volunteering for this study because they don't want to spend the rest of their lives in these types of vaso-occlusive crises that is not just about pain, but they can actually be about multiple organ failure and then death.
Yeah.
So if you ask the first question of whether someone wants to go through potential a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks of, being in the hospital and being monitored to make sure they don't get an infection versus potentially dying and living a painful existence, the answer universally is I would rather take that chance with that treatment than live in pain.
It's great news for those suffering from sickle cell, this gene therapy treatment. So honored and humbled that our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, has been involved in this, and we are pleased to share that news with you. Let me move quickly now, watching my time. Well, let me do this. When we come forward, I'll knock out both of these in our remaining moments with Dr. Drummond. We'll talk about COVID. Dr. Fauci is retired. He's gone, but COVID is still around, and apparently it's back, I won't say with a vengeance. I'll let him put his own word on it, his own language on it. But it's out there again, and many people are contracting it once again. We'll talk about COVID as we move into the holiday season, how concerned you should be about that, and some news on Ozempic. We'll do that when we come forward. Dr. Robert Drummond on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Go to DonorsChoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, music, and more. Learn more at DonorsChoose.org.
Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Dr. Robert Drummond right now. 4 minutes left to go. Let me cover both of these issues right quick. Dr. Drummond, your advice, your thoughts about COVID and its continual spread as we move through the busy travel season, the busy holiday season.
You know, it's as we talked about multiple times over the last few years. SARS-CoV-2 virus is not going anywhere. We're going to be living with it. Right now, there are no variants that are of major concern to us in regards to, increased or worsening morbidity. And so it's one of those things where we'll continue to live with it. We'll continue to be infected by it. Some individuals will choose to get vaccinated, but I remind everyone that each infection is essentially like a new vaccine. So you don't have to be so ready to run out and grab another vaccine if your body's continuing to mount natural immunity towards it.
Yep. And finally here, Ozempic. Everybody knows this name now. It was the first, and if not the first, certainly the one that everybody knows, gets the most attention in conversation. So Ozempic is one of these weight loss drugs. There are others now. But there are questions now about some of the side effects. I was reading an article yesterday in preparation for our conversation today that some doctors refuse at the moment to prescribe it for overweight children, adolescents, because they're concerned about what the potential side effects may be, and it's just too early for some pediatricians to prescribe it to overweight babies, and God knows there are too many overweight children in this country these days. So I understand the need for it and the desire for it, and yet many pediatricians, again, are concerned about the side effects given how early on we are in this process. And then there are now stories, it's been out long enough, there are enough stories that we have read about folk who gain most or all the weight back when they stop taking Ozempic. Your thoughts about Ozempic and this new crop of weight loss drugs, as it were?
All right, let me be quick about this. So first, we're talking about these GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide agonists, okay? And so these are medications that you give that the way that they act, essentially, they reduce your appetite, they make you feel full faster, and they modulate how your body is handling glucose. And so they were typically designed for diabetes to reduce the hemoglobin A1C, but they found in a lot of these patients the side effect was weight loss. And so for semaglutide, that is basically the medications Ozempic and Wegovy, same exact medications, just different concentrations. And then the other one is tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro. And they all act a little bit similar. As you mentioned very, very eloquently, they do have side effects. I think from my perspective, what I'd say is everything needs to be about the doctor-patient relationship. It needs to be about explaining risks and benefits. That is the total purpose of informed consent. And as long as the patient understands what these risks and benefits are, then you make that decision together. Right. So there are some risks of, delayed gastric emptying, meaning individuals stay full and food stays in the stomach, and even occasional cases of pancreatitis, which is, inflammation and infection of the pancreas, which we can require hospitalization. So any patient that is listening, that is on these medications, I just encourage you to listen to your body. Yeah. If something doesn't feel right, go back, talk to your doctor, drink plenty of water, and don't be afraid to ask questions about this. If something doesn't feel right, talk to your doctor because it may be a sign of something larger going on.
And the 30 seconds I have left right quick here, what's it all matter if when you stop taking it, you gain the weight back, Doc?
I agree 100%. And it's like a lot of the diets that are out there. The goal for patients taking this medication is to develop healthy eating habits and exercise so that when they step down off of the medication, they no longer need it. But you're absolutely right. Patients, they stop taking this, they gain all the weight back and possibly more.
our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond. Always grateful to him for his insights shared regularly on this program. Dr. Drummond, happy holidays to you, sir. Be safe, and I'll talk to you soon, my brother.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time. In our third and final hour today, a conversation with Isaac Hayes III at the top of hour 3, and Faison Love celebrating the 20th anniversary of the classic holiday film Elf. All of that in our final hour. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.